things to contend with. Akzo Nobel reported a weak June quarter. That's exactly what all the paint companies did as well. Both revenue and profit facing pressure along with margin contraction. But more lies ahead for the company as the big deal that we were talking about has happened. The CMD Rajiv Rajgopal joins in. The stock down about 3.5% on the back of the first quarter performance. But important to track what lies ahead. Rajiv, always a pleasure speaking with you. And instead of now asking you, what's happening, who's buying the company, now that we know all of that, the question is how far along the integration process is right now. I mean, by when is this entire deal likely to complete? And what have been the levers that have been put in place so far ever since the announcement that has been made?
Good morning, Mangalam. Good to see you and Nigel, and good morning to all the viewers. So first and foremost, as far as the entire process is commenced, as you know, you were there when the announcement got made. The CCI application had got filed around the 17th of July. It takes, I understand, about 3 to 4 months, and then it will be followed by the open offer. At this point of time, I think that we are constrained to what we can discuss, and it's largely around the organization, etc., which the discussions have started. Obviously, some of that will pick momentum because we've been also busy, given that fact that we had our board meeting and AGM, etc. So it will start picking up, and obviously factory visits, etc., will commence. But suffice to say, I think delighted to be part of a conglomerate, which is one of the most dynamic groups in the country. And hopefully, me and my entire team will sort of move lock, stock and barrel towards the end of the year. I expect the deal to conclude by the end of Q4 or early January, but that's the timeline we currently have, Mangalam.
But a lot of the work will be done before that as well, right? You want to hit the ground running. So while...
Yes.
My question was, while process takes its course and the integration formally happens by the fourth quarter, I'm sure you guys are now looking at where and what all of that before you all actually formally integrate. So
there are a bit of constraints because of the CCI process. There are do's and don'ts of what we can and what we cannot discuss, and we are complying to each and every part between both the organizations. It's important from our perspective, from a governance point of view. So hence, I think that entire, discussion would really start a couple of months or closer to when the CCI approval is in place. That's when really the momentum will pick up. But yes, I think at a very high level, we are understanding in our way, what we could do. I think the larger part is in terms of what the company name would be, etc. I think it's more for Mr. Parth Jindal to enumerate that. I think it's not fair on my part to really talk about it. So I leave it for him to sort of give you an update of what's happening.
Rajiv, it's always good speaking to you. Me and Mangalam, we should think about how we're going to go about bowling this over. 6 balls, and then we have to bowl in the googly with regard to who's going to take over. Now, at least that query is out of the way. So let's focus on business. What's the split between retail and B2B segment? And in the first quarter, how did both these two segments perform?
So actually, this is one quarter, Nigel, where in the month of June, we actually had a very difficult month. Actually, April and May we were doing well, but I think because of the uncertainty exactly in terms of what's going to happen on the warranties that are given on the products, retailers in terms of what's going to happen to the stock lying with us. While we did anticipate some of it, and we did talk to about 700 dealers when we had a meeting with them in Kolkata around the mid of June, obviously it wasn't enough because, it was coming across. So this was across both, I would say, on the decorative side, both on retail and projects, we had a tepid month. But you know what? The good news is July has bounced back. So pretty much if I now look at July, and July ended up with a growth, which may be a little contrary to the way the industry would have seen it. So if I take an average of July and June, I think we would have been there. I think now the trade, our customers and consumers have got a little more certainty of what's going to happen. And they know that the gear is going to change and we are going to get far more aggressive. So I think that's good. I think that's the good part. On our B2B business, on our coatings business, again, we had similar challenges, actually. And we also had end of order because marine and protective, for example, there's a clear order book for 6 months. We had a massive sort of an uptick last year in the same period where some of the naval ships were getting sort of quoted. Obviously, that came to an end. But again, if I look at the order book for the next 3 to 6 months, I'm not worried. I think this was a blip and that blip will be taken care of. I think our journey, our quest of continuing to gain market share, giving both customers and consumers confidence in the fact that we are very much there. We continue to stand for best-in-class quality. And with the dynamic and the speed and aggression that JSW integration will bring in, I think we're really poised to really partake in the larger market.
Possible for you to quantify the impact around the channels on account of the takeover announcement? You said that June was difficult for you. I mean, I suppose part of that could also be on account of unseasonal rains, but a large part was because of this uncertainty. Could you give us a sense how much of that was lost, and now how much of that has come back? What is it that you had to say to them?
So Mangalam, typically, see, look, I didn't talk about seasonality, unseasonal rains or the early rains, because that's got covered by many of my peers who already come on your channel. But really, I think we typically dealers in our case stocks approximately between 3 weeks to 4 weeks of stock. There was an impact of about a week because people started down stocking a bit, not sure in terms of what's going to happen next. We've had to send out letters to our customers and to our B2B customers, giving them an assurance that all the warranties and everything will stand good. Akzo Nobel will stand guaranteed till the time Akzo Nobel is there. And fortunately, JSW has also agreed, and obviously we want a seamless integration happening between the two business. Once that got done and people got the confidence, by the end of first week of July, things have started pulling back. So it's just a matter of time now that we believe that we will start sort of getting back.
What about the growth outlook for the year?
So,
if you could tell us what kind of ambitions would you have? Obviously, Parth will get involved at some point of time. I had a chat with him yesterday. He's sounding very optimistic about cement. So I'm sure he'll be quite optimistic on, paints as well. But what growth aspirations do you have? And Rajiv, do you have, is there going to be any price increases, or do you think that's already in?
So Nigel, to answer that part, look, I don't think any price increases are going to happen at this point of time, because look, the market is discounting at a much higher level, and which is baked in. And fortunately, we've been able to, from a decorative side, at least keep our margins relatively intact. Our margin dilution happened in the coatings because of the mix. We sold more of the low margin business in the last quarter than the high margin, which is our vehicle refinish business, which will come back. To answer your question in terms of outlook, I believe that, look, we would end up with now a high single digit, not a double digit growth on volume, and value will slightly, maybe about 1 or 2 points lower than volume, because of the fact that the growth is largely coming in the economy, waterproof, mass, those segments, and construction chemicals. We are yet to launch our construction chemicals portfolio. We've just started testing it with a few projects, decorative B2B customers. And as we get confidence and as the stability, etc., is checked for, we'll then start bringing it into the B2C market. So we are fairly confident. I think we've got an aggressive plan. We will also come with a new campaign closer to Diwali. And with that, I'm fairly confident that we will start getting back. Again, my first ambition is to get back to being the top 2 in terms of growth, something that we lost last quarter after being there for almost 12 quarters. And then obviously start really getting back for high single digit and then double digit growth. That's the progression.
So this year, high single digit and thereafter double digit.
Yes, absolutely. We stand committed. You're right. I think Parth has had a conversation with us in terms of his ambition and outlook. It is very aggressive, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we take that point. Rajiv, thank you so much for that. What proportion of those conversations were around margins, or was it largely top line itself?
Both. I think, look, from our perspective, obviously it was largely top line, but there would be a margin conversation because erosion of margins is not really something that we would like to. It's about saying how we can reinvest in our business.
Right. Take that point entirely. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for joining in. Look forward to having this conversation with you closer to you getting the CCI approval and thereafter the strategies that you would be making as well. That's Akzo Nobel, stock lower on the back of a weak first performance, but the company is guiding for better times ahead. With that, we'll take a short break. On the other side, we have the management of Aditya Infotech, CP+, which listed on the NSE with gains of over 50%. The IPO, remember, subscribed over 100 times.